What is up, motherfuckers? Welcome to my first outside broadcast episode of Thompsin and Other Disappointments. And indeed, another edition, a Fuck This Week edition, which is where I just kind of talk to myself and try to make sense of the senseless. I got a couple of things I want to tap into on this one, and I hope you will entertain me. And what's the word? Sorry, my daughter woke me up at like 2, and then my son came into our bed at like 2:30 and started kicking me in the balls. I was trying to sleep, and then I went downstairs and I thought, you know what, I'll sleep on the sofa and Lucy can just see to the baby for a bit. I just need some sleep and to be not kicked in the balls. And lo and behold, couldn't get back to sleep. So now here we are. Here I am walking around a park like a madman, talking to you guys. So I really, really hope that you find this entertaining and that you will indulge me. That was the word I was looking for. I hope that you will indulge me as I wander around this park that, do you know what? I used to actually walk around at like 5 a.m. It's just gone 5 now. And I used to sort of think, do I look weird doing this? You know, like, am I just... Like the sorts of people that I see around this park at 5 a.m. are old Nepalese women. Don't ask me why. It's just there's a small population of them in the town where we live. And for some reason, they get up at, bastard o'clock in the morning and go for a walk around the park. I don't know any more than that. So there's me, Nepalese women, and then dog walkers. And then it's me, right? And so I look like an insane person because they all have reasons to be walking around the park, I assume. We don't know what they are. I don't know what the cultural foundations are for why Nepalese women wake up at 4:30 in the morning and go, do you know what? Let's walk around a park in the pitch black where there's murderers and junkies probably. Let's do that. I love this country. This is why I came here. Let's do this. This country is so beautiful. I want to see every nook and cranny of it, including heroin addiction and late night violence. So they have, maybe it's a temple thing. I don't know. Like if they're Buddhist, is there an early morning service? Like they go for a walk and then they go to the service? Or, I don't know, something like that. And then you've got dog walkers who, they're up early, walk the dog, then they go to work or then they do the school run. And then I just think, like, do I look like a dog walker without a dog? Like, what would you think if you saw a 40-year-old man walking around a park by himself at like 4:30 in the morning? I would think, is he dogging? Or is he some sort of predator walking around? And like, if the police stopped me, if something happened in this park, if somebody was murdered in this park, I would have no alibi. Like, there's no way that they would believe that a relatively sane man would, like, so why were you in the park alone at 4:30, Mr. Thompson? I just, sometimes my son wakes me up and I just go for a walk. What, by yourself? Yeah, just get out of the house. You walk around the park by yourself and we found a body in the same park. Like, do you expect us to have you got anything better than that? No, that's the truth. Like, I wouldn't stand a chance. They would convict me in a heartbeat if God forbid they ever find a body at the same time as I'm. Anyway, look, we've gone down an unfortunate tangent here because, mostly because I'm fucking knackered and, my brain is completely haywired for this episode. So I guess the long and short of it is, welcome to this episode of Fuck This Week, this edition where I'm tired, delirious, and I'm just going to talk nonsense at you. This is what a crazy person sounds like when they've been sleep deprived by two very beautiful but increasingly difficult to manage and handle children. I hope that resonates with some of you. The people that listen to this who have children will be now listening going, I get it. I totally understand, man. Yeah, this guy. I'm on the same page as this guy. I can empathise. I might listen to more of this. The people who listen to this who don't have children will be thinking, well, this podcast's taken a fucking weird turn. I started listening. I started subscribing to this shit because I thought, I was into tech and politics and dystopia, and now it just seems to be some fucking weirdo walking around a park and narrating it. So anyway, let's get into it. Talking about dystopia and politics, I've decided to take a bit of a break from news, which might sound like a strange thing for somebody who hosts a podcast that is sort of, let's say, 1/3 centered around what happens in the news cycle. Because I do, there's a lot of shit that I do tap into that is not immediately in the headlines, like the episode a couple of weeks ago about the housing crisis and about the leasehold crisis is not in the headlines every day. And a few of the earlier episodes were about specific tech things like user experience or data science and AI. But I think the more recent episodes, because it feels like we're at sort of fever pitch with politics in the UK, it's felt like a sort of a hot topic. It's felt like something I should get involved in. And you know what? If I'm really honest with you, it's good for the retweets. Yeah. Like if I do an episode and I can cut like a little 5-minute thing out of it and put it on Twitter, and it's about something that's happened in Brexit or something that's happened with COVID mismanagement, that is a good day on Twitter, because chances are it'll get likes and retweets and so on. It's good for the podcast. But I've decided to take a break from the news because it's just, like, do you ever get the feeling it's just too much? Like, I'm so jealous of our parents and our grandparents, of the low level of news and the mundane, boring nature of politics back in, like, the 70s or 80s. Like, I'm sure they would disagree and they would say, oh, yeah, Watergate was a really big thing. Or, JFK was shot in the fucking head. You call that boring, do you? But I mean, like, now, because you've got so much news, because you've got umpteen channels and whole radio stations dedicated to just London news, and the BBC Parliament channel and Sky News and like BBC blah 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 blah, like, and that's just here, right? Then in the States you've got all of their channels, and then you've got people's podcasts and Twitter and blogs, and it just gets like, there's so much and it's relentless. It's like standing under a waterfall and just like what wild torrential rain hammers down on you as well. It's just an assault on the senses, waterboarding you with information constantly, and not like nice information. It's all like chaos and mismanagement and murder and death and rapes and misogyny and terrorism, and it's just, I feel a bit not burnt out, because like I'm always going to be obsessed by it, but it's I just feel like, and let me preface what I'm about to say by saying I never thought I'd be one of these people that says this, but I just feel like maybe for my mental health, maybe it's good to step back from it for a little minute, Like, last year I decided to do this, and what I did was I entered a script into Twitter, and it automatically unfollowed everyone. So I wasn't following anyone on Twitter anymore. And then what I did was I sort of cherry-picked a few people who I still wanted to follow. I followed them again. And then a few, like, tech accounts, because I work in tech, so it makes sense, right? But apart from that, that was it. News blackout for me. I deleted all the news apps off my phone. I just focused on work. And it felt like going cold turkey. It really felt like, when people say like, oh, you're addicted to your phone, or you're addicted to, the internet, or, strange, weird addictions. And they say, just put your phone down for a day, and it's really hard, and you're twitchy, and, whenever you've got a spare half a minute, you're just reaching for your phone. You're like, oh, fuck, maybe I have got an addiction to this weird, glowing, fucking chaos funnel in my pocket. But it's like I did feel cut off. I felt like I was no longer on the grid, Even though, like, you still got Facebook and you see things sort of pop up on your feed, people, bitching and moaning about stuff on WhatsApp. Like, I can't believe this thing that's happened today, that this type of thing always happens every fucking day now. But I still can't believe that this thing has also happened. And, so you're loosely aware of things. But yeah, you feel, I don't know, you feel cut off. It just feels nice. It's like going on holiday. And anyway, that happened in March last year, March 2020, which... you will be aware was when the pandemic really fucking went into fifth gear, in the UK at least. And so it was the fucking weirdest thing to be cut off from news and be like, it's pretty good. I don't even feel like I'm missing out really on anything. See, this is proof that you don't need to be obsessing over news, because I'm not connected to the news and I'm not even missing out. Wait, what? There's a global fucking pandemic and people are going to get locked in their houses for 6 months. Like, what the fuck? So let's just hope, touch wood, that that doesn't happen this time. I could really do without, like, every time I decide to take a step back from the news, that some global calamity doesn't fucking explode. I'd really like that. Or like another Afghanistan imploding. So yeah, I'm taking a break from the news, and so I think the next few episodes of this podcast will be, I'm still going to get some guests on. I've got a guy called Irving Anderson who's going to come on this Friday night, hopefully. And he works in the House of Lords. He's a Conservative guy. And I think he works for or supports a lord or something. He's not a lord himself. But he's coming at life and society and tech and everything from a different angle to me. And I think that's really important to, not just to sort of selfishly like fuel your own perspectives and reshape your thoughts and feelings with the influence of somebody who comes from somewhere else on the political landscape, although that is important. I think it's just important to hear people out. Like, how often do we ever actually fucking hear people out anymore? Never. You never see or hear people having a reasonable debate about something. It's always, or at least, in the news cycle and on Twitter, and like arguments with friends and relatives and shit, it's always something along the lines of, like with Brexit, it'll be like, fucking Brexiters, I hope you're happy, look, there's no food on my supermarket shelf, here's a picture of it. It's that shit. Or like in the reverse direction, if it's anti-vaxxers or anti-mask or anti-lockdown types, and it's going towards the pro-science community, then it'll be people like, you fucking sheep, like there's never any actual civil discourse. So I, like, in my own small, pathetic, meagre way, I think it's nice, like, if I can get somebody from the right to just kind of sit with me and have a chat. And he was on a few episodes ago, and we talked a lot about where the conservative mindset starts and stops, and why we can't agree on some things. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to having a chat with him about that. What was some other stuff I wanted to touch on? I wanted to talk a bit about career moves, because this is something, right, this is quite important to me because of the direction that my life has taken. And I don't think I've really talked about this in any depth before. And I'm going to be quite open with you. I'm going to be quite upfront and honest. And dare I say vulnerable. Make of that what, I mean, would I be this upfront and honest if I were not delirious and on basically 3 hours sleep? Probably not. Let's see how we go though. I'll tell you the story of where I've come from and to, and hopefully that will sort of join the dots, if you like, on why career moves and retraining is something that's so close to my heart, right? So, I grew up in a town called Maidenhead, and I grew up on council estates there. And though my girlfriend always sort of, smirks or takes the piss a bit when I say that, because in her mind, she grew up in Peckham, right? And in her social periphery, a council estate was a very different place to where I grew up. So in her mind, high-rise blocks of flats, deprivation, a cosmopolitan population, crime, drug use. In my world, a council estate was the first place we lived was a block of flats in Norden Road in Maidenhead, and it was a little bit grotty, but it wasn't too bad. And then after that, we lived in a Toynbee housing estate or a housing association, which was sort of, I was told it was a charity. I don't really know the machinations of that, of how a charity has houses or whatever, but we lived there. And then finally, my mum was able to buy a house when we were about 14 or 15, so somewhere around there. But the place that we bought the house was a shithole. It was possibly the worst street in Maidenhead. And on the way back from school, I remember kids throwing stones at my fucking head, as I'm walking past. I mean, either they were a bad shot or they meant to throw it at the fence or whatever. But still, I mean, a 14 or 15-year-old kid walking back home from school with stones flying past us, like, you get the idea. It was a deprived social housing and post-local authority area with chain link fencing and shitty-looking kids. I know it's probably not a nice thing to say. Probably comes off as a bit classist because of, I don't know, just how I speak, right? But it was, quite rough kids and stones going past your head and dogs not on leashes and arguments in the street. And I've said this before, but it wasn't always loud and noisy and chaotic, because Father's Day was usually quite a quiet affair, right? Anyway, that's my one joke about this wheeled out. So there was council estates, and I went to a comprehensive, and then I went through that trajectory of coming from a council estate through college, through university. And then you would think, oh, he studied at uni, so then he became sort of middle class. Well, not really. I sort of, if I'm honest, thought I was going to be a rock star when I was 18, 19, 20. I was like, well, I'll go to uni because it was loose. It was a music business course. I thought, oh, if I don't become the next Kurt Cobain, in the unlikely event that I don't become a world-changing celebrated rock star, then at least I've got something where I can manage bands or I can work for a record label or something like that. So I went through uni, but after uni I didn't have, there was no nepotism in my family. It wasn't like I could go to my dad and say, oh, can I have an internship please, or can you hook me up with your mate over there and I could do an internship at Sony Records, and my mum wasn't in the sort of financial situation where she could say, I'll give you the 400 quid a month to go into London, because, Maidenhead isn't London. You'd have to catch, all these record labels are in London. So I'd have to catch a train every day and commute into London and not be paid for it. So my situation wasn't conducive with going that whole sort of, oh, he went to uni and then immediately became middle class because he did this. And so what did I do? I left university and I got an office job. And one of the officey places around was a vehicle leasing company. And I worked there for 2.5 years, and I worked in customer service and client services and account management and all that shit. And then I sort of moved from there to this sales support thing in a big telecoms company. And then I moved from there up to London and worked in another sales support thing. And then from there, I ended up in recruitment for 6 years. And I suppose really my point of this is that I just kind of drifted. I just didn't really know what the fuck I was supposed to do other than something creative. I just thought, I'm supposed to be doing something creative. If I can just keep the money coming in through the sales support stuff and the recruitment and whatever, then hopefully I can pursue this and eventually it will pay money. And so on extracurricular, I was doing it started off with grungy kind of singer-songwriter stuff, and then it moved on to some hip-hop for about 5 years, And then after the hip hop, it moved on to stand-up comedy. And the whole time I was thinking, I've just got to keep the money coming in. And then eventually I'll find some creative route that will pay the money. And then I met my girlfriend. And I had gone from job to job to job to shit sales support job to shit sales job to shitter sales job. And when I met my girlfriend, I thought, wait, hold on. Let me just stop for a quick coffee. Hold on. There we go. Keep the fatigue at bay. When me and my girlfriend got together, I was sort of pursuing stand-up. And then this opportunity came up at work. And by this point, I was working at Sky, again, as a sort of... but actually, no, by that time, I'd moved into projects. So I'd managed to make a leap from, like, salesy, supporty stuff into projects via a bank, just by volunteering for a load of shit projects that nobody else wanted to do. Like, oh, somebody's got to go downstairs and fire this person. Like, I'd be like, I'll do it. Yep, sure. That's another thing I can tick on my CV of awkward, unpleasant jobs that nobody wants to do, but I've done. Like, I just thought, oh, if I keep volunteering for these fucking shit jobs and shit projects, then eventually I'll get some experience and somebody will hire me as a, like, shit, junior projecty guy. And so then when I was doing that at Sky, again, like, somebody said, like, what is it you want to do here? And I said, something creative. Just something. This is like, I was aged 35 by this point. So 15 years, pretty much, since leaving university, 14 years, I'd been, like, telling myself, oh, if I could just do something creative. So by the time this director was like, what is it you want to do? I was like, oh, just, please, God, somebody, just something creative. And long story short, he introduced me to an engineer, and the engineer set me up with some tutorials, and I got up so Lucy was pregnant at this time, and I got up at bastard o'clock in the morning, and I did tutorials. I went on YouTube and I watched these videos, and then I tried the stuff that they were talking about on the videos, and then I got a tiny bit more confident with it, and I'd, made a web page, and I'd put some words, just terrible, shit little web pagey things like where, oh fuck, I made a word go red. How cool is that? And then there was some other stuff, like they were like, oh, now you can learn a tiny bit of this thing called Ruby. I was like, okay. And every morning I'm getting up, opening up my laptop, doing another bit of a course, or fucking around, or, just trying to make an image appear on a web page. Like, it was a very slow and borderline humiliating process to go from being this projecty guy, where I actually kind of had a rough idea what I was doing, because most of it was just answering emails and, like, running reports on Excel and having meetings with people and taking notes, and to go from that to something quite technical where it's like, fuck, I don't know how to do this shit. Now I've got to go Googling, hunt through millions of pages and try and find a solution. Oh shit, they've written a solution here, and it looks completely different to my code. Why is my code written like this, but maybe am I using an old version? And so it's a complete, like, different paradigm of thinking and work, and sort of wrapping a career mindset around what it is that you're learning. Because, like, with projects or sales support, all of that shit, I was just like, yeah, I'll just do this for a bit. But with coding and learning to code, I was like, this could actually pay the bills. This could actually sort me out. And at the time, I was so obsessed with stand-up that I was like, if I just do coding for like 5 or 6 years, I reckon I could get to a point where I'd have enough money to put on my own Edinburgh show. Or, maybe by that point I could, I would have saved enough money for a flat deposit for us to live in, or like something along those lines. So it seemed like there was an actual goal there. Like, and my mindset changed from being like, oh, just going to work, to being like, I can't wait to go into work. And that's a huge shift for somebody like me who, I don't think it's outrageous to say that anyone who knew me in my 20s and probably early 30s probably thought that they would not hire me. I think. My friends and my friends of friends, I think that if you asked them what they made of me when I was like 28, 29, would you hire him? Would you refer him into your company? Like, I think they'd be like, not really, because he doesn't seem to take work very seriously. He's always out on a Tuesday night getting hammered. And, how many times has he he's sent us long emails from his work. Like, is he even doing work? I didn't really take it particularly seriously. And then when I was learning to code, I was like, this is actually really interesting. I can't wait to get back to my desk and crack on with this. And so it really was a dramatic shift for me. Now, there's a couple of ways you could look at that. You could be like, well, you found your thing. Or you could look at it like, well, Lucy was pregnant and it lit a fire under your ass and it made you think, fuck, I need to actually get my shit together. And maybe those two things are, to some extent, the drivers of what I did and like what I'm doing now. And but I also think even if you don't go into coding, not everyone wants to do coding. But if you get into tech, or even if you just want to retrain to do fucking pottery or whatever, I think so many people just don't fucking do it. They just think, oh man, I wish I was a painter. Or, wish I could be... or like comedy, like, oh, I'd love to try comedy. But they never seem to sort of find the time. They never pursue it. And I think it's possible. It's entirely possible for people to do it. And it's almost like a confidence thing they have to get over. And I say that as somebody who's not particularly confident in myself. Like, when I was saying earlier about, I'm going to be quite open and honest with you. I can be confident in the moment and I can talk to you guys on a podcast and I can chat with other people. I love a good story. I love a good chat. And I like pulling ideas apart and psychology and politics and so on. But in terms of my ability, having confidence in myself, I have huge imposter syndrome to the point where, I've just started a new job. And even though I've been doing front-end development for 6 years now, and I know how to spin up web pages, and I've written hundreds, if not thousands, of components, and, I know what I'm doing with it. But still, starting this new job, I'm working with 2 other developers, and it is constantly at the forefront of my mind where I'm like, I'm not a real person. These people are real people. These 2 are real developers. I'm not a real developer. And I don't think that thing will ever go away. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know why some people don't have it or don't appear to have it. Like, they just get out of their car, walk straight in the office. They're like, yeah, I've earned this. This is where I'm supposed to be. Yeah. No, I'm equally as important as everyone else here. In fact, I'm pretty great. I wish I had that sort of undiluted, relentless confidence that some people have, but I just don't. It's just, there's always going to be this sort of hole, this hollowed out feeling where I feel like I haven't earned my stripes. And in some ways, I think what you can do is flip it around and look at it like a strength. You could be like, if you don't feel confident or you don't feel like you've earned your stripes, it can push you, if you let it can push you to then try harder than the people who appear to have earned their stripes. And so then your work ethic and your drive serve you well. Like, that comes off well because people are like, oh, he seems to be really trying, or he's really putting in the graft, but it's, I think, just like circling back to the beginning of what I was saying about coming from council estates and not going that traditional, catapult through university to middle class route. Much of my 20s I spent fucking broke. I I remember being in Muswell Hill, lodging sounds weird. I was renting a room with two friends in Muswell Hill, which is a very affluent area, and it was a lovely flat. But it was, if I'm honest, I couldn't really afford the room there, and the rent was quite high, and I was being paid fucking pretty much nothing for London salaries. And I remember that, like, the two of them talking. One of them was talking about where he was going to go on holiday. Like, should I go to this place skiing, or should I go on this thing? We might drive across the US, and we're going to rent a car. And this seemed like fantasy to me. And the other one was talking about, saving money, and maybe he should think about a flat deposit. And then it went back to the other one who had been given flat deposit money from his parents. And then I'd go off into my room, and I'm staring at this, like, it was like an old wine bottle, like a really big open top. Don't know if you know the sort of shape I'm talking. Like a wine bottle that's not shaped like a wine bottle. It's got like a huge circle at the top of it. Anyway, it was like old and empty, and I'd filled it up with coppers. And I went in my room and I counted out my coppers into, like, I think it was like £5 or £6 of coppers, which I then took to the shop and bought like a 4-pack of Fosters or something. And that was my opulence. That was my, like, they're talking about skiing holidays and flat deposits. I was like, right, well, this is where I'm at. I'll just get my 4 cans of life. That was in my 20s, not even my early 20s. I was probably about 28, 29 then. And so I think when you come from council estates and you've gone through your 20s broke and struggling, and, I accept that a lot of that is down to financial mismanagement on my part, but then even, financial mismanagement and the psychology of handling your finances, I think actually you could root that back to where you come from, your expectations, your role models, how you were raised, whether your household personally respected finances or handled their money, or whether they normalised financial chaos and recklessness. So anyway, if you come from that sort of background, and I'm not going to call it deprivation because it wasn't that, but it was struggle, and it was recklessness. To then get into a situation where you retrain and you see your income come up and you manage to attain some sniff of financial security, and it's not even over yet. Like, you every job move that you have, your income is going up, and you actually get to thinking, like, I could do this in 2 years, or maybe in 5 years I could invest in this idea, or, to have changed so dramatically and shifted, and to have your opinion respected about the area that you've retrained in, and to actually get up in the morning and really enjoy what you do, and to build things and see them come to life. Like, that journey, God, I sounded insufferable, journey. That move from being financially reckless and counting out your coppers and council estates, and to having that and achieving that, if that doesn't sound too self-filety, I think is a huge step, and a hugely rewarding one, that I hope and pray that loads, oh God, I can't even talk now, run out of words. I hope and pray that significantly more people than just me, and a few little cherry-picked people who were given an opportunity at Sky are able to benefit from. It's a subject, in terms of retraining and career moves, that's so close to my heart, because I know that this shit works. I know that you could do it, because I've done it, and my opinion of myself is so fucking low that I'm like, ugh, if imposter syndrome fucking riddled sack of chaos like me could do this, then you could fucking do it. That's my mentality with this. Is like, this isn't even that hard. Like, you could do this. All you need is to get up a couple of hours earlier, be a bit tired for about 6 months, put the work in, and you could probably get hired as a junior developer or an apprentice developer somewhere. People are so hungry for developers at the moment that they would take you on as an investment. They'd be like, well, we'll hire him on like 22k, and that's enough to keep him for the time being. And then, you know, as long as we treat him well, he'll stay here and we'll actually get a great deal out of him, because we won't have to keep hiring a new developer every year when they get bored and leave. And, you know, like there's an investment, and it's a good move for the company, and it's a great move for you career-wise, and then you can fuck off in 3 or 4 years and double your salary. Like it's not that hard, and it's not unrealistic. So it's I don't know. If you're thinking about making a career move, I really, really would encourage you to do so. And if you know someone who's kind of stuck in a rut, who's always been a bit financially chaotic, or has fallen through the cracks a couple of times, either send them this podcast or have a chat with them and paraphrase the shit that I'm talking about, because it's definitely achievable. And I don't know if certainly enough, I don't know if too many people even realise that these opportunities are open to them. Like, I've been having chats off and on with my brothers-in-law, and they're talking about retraining, but I don't think they really fully understand the wide open door that is in front of them. Like, they'll do tutorials, and they'll do like a bit of this, a bit of that, and every now and then they'll ask me a question and go, yeah, we're just sort of fucking around with this, and, you know, what do you think about that? And I'll advise them, but in order to get them to walk through that door, like I sent them a link to the Sky Get Into Tech scheme today, and they were like, cool, thanks man, yeah, I might take a look. And I'm like, you should fucking definitely take a look. Like, here is a global conglomerate who are running an initiative to get people into tech. You don't even have to have fucking experience in tech. You don't even need really to get up at 4 a.m. and do the tutorials. You just rock up to Osterley, to Sky, and say, yeah, man, I'd love to get into tech. And they go, wicked, walk through this door. Like, the work, the effort is minimal. It's outrageously easy if you just, and I'm sure that Sky aren't alone. I'm sure that other companies also run that shit. This is why it annoys me so much with, like, so on one of the episodes, last week I was talking about KPMG, and their attitude to addressing classism. They were like, we want to hire 30% of our staff from working class backgrounds. That's their new initiative. So they're going to sit you in an interview room and say, is your dad a plumber? Was your mum a post lady? You know, or a lollipop lady? Or, you know, does your dad work in a shop? Okay, cool, you're in. Which is great. But, you know, my memories of working at KPMG are slightly different. I remember the director there, and I'm sorry if you listened to the episode last week, but I'm just going to quickly touch on this again. My memories of working there was an associate director telling me that he didn't want to interview any 30-year-old graduates because he thought they were past it. He thought 30-year-old graduates hadn't got their shit together, obviously. I mean, fuck the fact that they had gone back to university and qualified and got this degree. In his mind, the fact that they had gone back to university so late was indicative and evidence of that they hadn't got their shit together, that they were actually just worthless. Like, how fucking weird and paradoxical is that? Like, I don't know about these 30-year-olds. You know, if you haven't got your shit together by 30, I just think it says something about you, Aid. Does it? Even though you've literally got your shit together. You put down the bottle of Jack Daniels or whatever it was that was keeping you from getting your shit together in your early and mid-20s, and then you got your shit together, you went to university, came out with a bit of paper that says this person is clever, and went to every lecture and came out with a first, but you say that means that they didn't get their shit together and they're worthless and you don't want to see them. That is some serious 180 shit going on there. And it wound me up at the time, but I wasn't 30 by then, so it seemed like, well, yeah, I guess maybe, you know. But it's like, now that I'm 40 years old and that I didn't get my shit together until I was 35, it winds me up even more. I'm like, why? Like, how would I feel if somebody had written me off, thrown me on the scrap heap at 29? And then I could, you know, let's say I went down a really dark road and I was like, you know, they've written me off. I'm a waste of space. I'm worthless. I'll just hang myself. Then I die. And then in death, I see what my life would have been had I stuck around. Does that make sense? So kill myself, then Grim Reaper or St. Peter or whoever walk me through what my life would have been like had I not killed myself. And then I see at 35 that I was going to become a father for the first time, that I was going to retrain, that I became a software engineer, and then I was able to move to this company and that company and buy a house. And like, how would I feel? How would my family feel if they could have seen that I could have turned it entirely around at 35? And again, like, I don't want this to sound all fucking, blowing my own dick or anything, but I'm using myself as purely as an example, but this could be true of 100,000 people out there. That this idea that you can write people off because they haven't gone the exact path that you think they should have gone by the age of 29 is fucking so arrogant and damaging and stereotypical and reductive. I mean, it should have its own word. Here I am reeling off adjectives and shit, but it should have its own word because it's so specifically cunty. So yeah, look, that's. I think that's all I have to say about career moves and such. I think if you are unhappy in your job or your career, and you feel like, well, I'll just do this until I can get my real idea off the ground. Like, great, give it a bash, but don't fucking suffer in silence for years and years and years. Because like, I've worked when I was like 20 or 21. Somewhere around there, I worked in a factory, and there were people who had worked in there for fucking 25 years who just went into work every day and moved the boxes, stamped the boxes, moved the boxes, stamped the boxes. And when I said to them, like, didn't you ever want to leave? Didn't you want to go and do something else? The guy was like, no, well, like, somebody's got to stamp these boxes, eh? If somebody else does it, I won't get to do it. It was like that sort of mentality. I know that sounds fucking weird, but it was literally that. It's like, somebody has to do this. And I was dumbfounded. I was still sort of very young and idealistic, but now I'm 40 years old. I can sort of see how people do kind of end up in that rut, and then it just becomes their life. They're like, yeah, well, every morning this is what I do. I get up at 5, go to the factory, I punch in, I do my work, then on the way home I grab a few bits from the shop and then kiss my wife on the cheek. We watch EastEnders and then we just go to bed. Like, that's great. If that's all you want, awesome. But if you are doing that thinking, I'll just do this for a little bit, just make sure you fucking do. Just make sure you actually pursue your shit and get up at 4 a.m. and try to do some tutorials or try to research your idea a little bit more instead of just dreaming along. Because I did that for like 15 years before I did actually light a fire up on, like, under my house. And my only regret with learning and making a career move is that I didn't fucking do it sooner. I'm like, I should have done this shit 10 years ago. That was the first thought that went through my mind when I went back to talk to the engineer that I was set up for a coffee with, where he was like, oh, how'd you get on? How'd you get on with the tutorials that I sent you? I was like, I wish I'd done this a decade ago. What the fuck was I doing? I could have done this a decade ago and still pursued music for fun. And here's the kicker, right? Is if you feel like making the career move is somehow you abandoning the thing that you've been pursuing as extracurricular. So in my situation, that would have been comedy or, music. Here's the weird thing is, like, you then tell yourself, but then I would be abandoning and betraying my creative roots. Well, no, like, here's what's amazing is, so now I'm doing coding and life is a bit better, things are a bit more settled. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm gonna run my own like little shit fringe show. It's gonna be shit and it's gonna be cheap and low budget and everything, but I'm gonna do it. Like, I know that it's gonna happen in the next 5 years or so. I'm gonna run this thing called, like, 'cause Edinburgh Fringe, and it's like Edinburgh Fringe is really expensive, prohibitively so. There's a fucking institution that needs to run a thing that addresses classism. Fuck me. And so it's out of reach for a lot of people. So I thought, instead of like Edinburgh, I'll run something called Insteadinburgh, and it'll be super cheap. People could just get like a half-hour show, and we'll get some industry people down, and it'll be a springboard for people who come from slightly harder backgrounds, right? So I can do that because I've got up and retrained and then, now I'm in a position where things are a bit more comfortable, a little bit less chaotic. So if you are thinking about doing a career move and thinking somehow that would be you abandoning your idea, I would suggest no, pursue the thing that, you could do the career move, increase your income, and then with the freedom that money gives you, you can then pursue the shit that you're actually super, super passionate about. Now, for me, that's like music and comedy. For you, maybe you've always wanted to run a cake shop, a little bakery or something. Well, how fucking rad would it be if you retrained, increased your income by 2 or 3 times, and then with the fact that you're no longer working 2 jobs, now you've got your evenings free. Maybe now you can afford more childcare. So now you've got your, Mondays and Tuesdays. You could just book some holiday and then focus on building up your bakery or researching recipes. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to labour the point too much, but you get the idea. Anyway, listen, guys, I've been walking around a park by myself, like a dog walker without a dog, as I said earlier, for 45 minutes. And it is now, I don't even know what time it is because my phone is when it's, even your phone gets bored of you, when your phone, the light goes off, I've still got the app open, recording myself talking, but the phone is checked out. It's I'm not fucking sticking around for this shit. Rabbiting on about your fucking career move. Nobody gives a shit. Here's a career move. You move me over there and just talk to yourself under the tree so you're not getting rained on. That's fine. But just leave me the phone over here by the bin. That's great. Cheers. So anyway, yeah, look, I'm gonna check out now. Thank you so much for listening, if indeed you have been listening. Please do say hello on Twitter because I never know who's listening to this. It's great when I get some feedback or a review maybe on iTunes. And yeah, I'll be uploading another episode this coming weekend, hopefully interviewing Irving Anderson if his schedule is all good. Please say hello via Patreon if you'd like to. I'm going to start putting out episodes first on Patreon soon, but the episodes will then be subsequently released on iTunes and Spotify and YouTube. And yeah, in the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll catch up with you soon. Okay, bye-bye.